Welcome to another episode of Dialed In, the podcast about customer service, automation, AI, contact centers, and everything in between. I'm the host of this show, Gadi Shamia, co-founder and CEO at Replicant, the company that automates customer service calls. And I have a very special guest for the first time in Dialed In. We actually have a customer of Replicant that is a very experienced executive in the contact center space. I would like to welcome Joe Russo. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Gadi. Thanks for having me. Excited to join.
Tell us a bit more about your role and maybe a bit more about AAA.
My role within the Auto Club Group is Assistant Vice President for Automotive Services, responsible specifically for our contact center operations in the emergency road service arena. So it covers the inbound calls for service requests, as well as the dispatch operations and outbound contacts relative to that, along with member experience and quality standards within that space, and of course, the staffing, planning, strategy development, etc. So it's a great role, very exciting, and within the AAA Federation, the Auto Club Group is very proud to be part of and deliver service on behalf of our 13.5 million members across our footprint against the 68 million members nationwide.
So let's clarify for a second. For most people, there is like AAA. This is so well-known logo, and you're part of Auto Club Group. Explain to the listeners what the difference between the different clubs and the overall brand of AAA.
Sure. So as a federation, we're governed by a set of standards in service delivery on behalf of our members across all of the various business verticals in which we operate. The Auto Club Group is the second largest of the clubs within the federation, serving 14 states and some territories outside Puerto Rico, et cetera. So in some cases, you'll have a club that just represents a small footprint. In other cases, you might have what we call mega clubs, representing a very large footprint and providing service at scale. So in a Reader's Digest condensed version, that kind of spells it out, I think.
Mm-hmm. So what led you to this role? Tell me a bit about your career and what got you to this specific role in the Auto Club Group.
Actually, if we go back, it's an interesting journey, I guess. So it's a little bit unorthodox in that my entry into the contact center world, specifically here at the Auto Club Group, really started out as a technician in new car dealerships, servicing vehicles as I attended college part-time in the evenings. Eventually, I was recruited to go into a large OEM technical assistance center to help diagnose challenging issues for dealerships over the phone. So that's how I ended up in the contact center space, right? And so then from there, I guess my career followed a pretty typical path of advancement, from technical consultant through frontline leadership and then quality standards and all of that through account management, ultimately to get to a business line ownership role. And, I left the automotive and service industry for a little while, going into some back-end operations, and I found myself wholly unhappy. And so getting back to service was really where my heart was. And an opportunity came up with the Auto Club Group that really fell in line with that timing for me. And so that's how I landed here, and it's been a joy.
I imagine you as the two brothers in the Car Talk podcast. My car makes sound. What's the problem? I guess this was your life.
That was my life. Yes.
Yeah, that was a great podcast. Unfortunately, one of the brothers I think passed away, so it's no longer. But Car Talk, I used to enjoy it, even though I'm not really a car person. What's the mission of AAA when you kind of wake up in the morning? What's drive you? What drive your colleagues?
Overall, service to our members is number one. So providing our members, helping them in their journey, making their life's journey as easy and effortless as possible as we engage with them across the many different verticals that we provide service within. And for us, being leading in everything that we do is really important, right? It's something that we strive for every day, providing service to our members that is, ultimately in a leadership role within our industry. So, in a nutshell, that's it. We've got the mission statement and everything. I won't go into all that, but it's that spells it out.
We have quite a few AAA clubs that work with us, and I was always impressed by how genuine the commitment for member safety and member experiences compared to other companies. We hear a lot about customer focus, customer centricity from our customers, and all of them do believe in that. But I just feel how innate this commitment to member safety is every time I talk with AAA leaders. Actually, in preparation for this podcast, I learned that one of the things that AAA was involved in 120 years ago was designing and unifying signs across the United States to prevent accidents. In a way, it's a business that quote unquote benefit from accidents. This is where you provide services. At the same time, it worked hard to prevent those and really help the members. I think this tells a lot about an organization that actually try to commit to the member safety rather than say, hey, more accidents, more stuff for us to do, members stay longer, etc. I was very impressed by that.
Yeah, our commitment to safety is at the heart of who we are. There's been legislation introduced across the country that we're very proud to have been a part of. The whole Slow Down, Move Over initiative is something we're proud to have been a partner in supporting and sponsoring. In the line of their work, roughly one service technician is killed every other week across the country. Wow. And so their safety and our members' safety is really paramount to everything that's at the forefront of what we do, and why there is such an urgency around our efforts to support our members and our technicians.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking to think about. I know now autonomous vehicles and self-assisting cars actually adhere to the flashing light slow down automatically without any driver interference, which is part of that. Tell us about the services that your call center provide. How are they different than what people think of a typical call center?
So my organization is responsible for delivery of emergency road service to our members and to strategic partnership customers across our footprint. So there's the telephone activity that includes service requests coming in, service checking, both coming in and going out from the members to the providers, combination of inbound and outbound activity in support of those efforts. I think if there's a differentiation from what's commonly considered typical, I could put air quotes around typical, right? If a differentiation might be just the fact that we are, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, taking emergency service requests and acting in various capacities to serve that need. Although I might argue, Gadi, that there's really not a typical contact center, in that there's so many variations on the business model that it'd be difficult to define the commonality, other than looking in the sense of business line verticals maybe. But it's an awesome business to serve, whether it's in our role or others in the industry. Serving customers and providing them with what they're looking for is always, to me, fulfilling.
Yeah, I think to me one of the differences is that many contact centers are there to help when something is not working in the main flow. If you call an airline, we have airline customers, typically it's because something went wrong. You booked a flight online, the flight got canceled, etc. Where the service you provide with your call center is part of why people are becoming members. So it's almost the main way to serve your customers is provide roadside services when they're stuck, which is a bit different than customer service is when something goes wrong was the main service. Here, that's your main service. So how's it, maybe a memorable, or maybe it can be more generic for a second, but what's the state of mind of a typical person calling for roadside service? Maybe if you have a memorable call that you once listened to, just kind of make it more real for us.
There are a lot of memorable calls, to be honest with you. When you go through the various calibration sessions and, process reviews, et cetera, so many stand out. You can hear the urgency in people's voices, and sometimes you can hear, cars and trucks passing by as they're sitting in their car on the side of the freeway. So I always share with, our new folks coming in that, people never start their day with the intention of calling AAA to see how things are going. Our first touch point with them is typically, if everything is great, they walked out of the house and had a flat tire or a dead battery or something. Or in the worst case, they were driving down the freeway and something went wrong. And those are the tougher ones. And that's where you hear that sense of urgency. I think one of the more memorable ones was a young lady. I was around 1 o'clock in the morning, and don't ask me why she was out with her baby at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure there was a reason. But she had locked her keys in the car, and the baby was in the car seat. And you can imagine the urgency in her voice and in her sense of frustration, fear, related to that situation, being in a parking lot, and her baby's in the car. So that's memorable. And those are tough situations, and our folks deal with that, again, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm. So with this call profile, what was the primary catalyst for you to explore automation in your call center? What kind of made you say, this is the time, this is what we need right now?
So we've been on this journey, Gadi, for a number of years. But I think our primary motivation has been taking some of the really high valuable deliverables that in practice might seem more mundane, repetitive tasks that consume time and effort, right? But don't necessarily leverage the skill and expertise of our staff, and then allow us to service those tasks through an automated process of one sort or another. An example might be, say, an outbound call to one of our members who might be safe at home, just keeping them updated on the progress of their service request, right? To the member, that's really valuable. They want to know what's happening. Even if they're safe at home, they still want to know what's happening, right? Are you going to be on time? Is something happened that delays you? You just want to know. But when you flip that and you look at the side of the dispatcher, they might look at that differently, in that it's just a routine update to somebody who's safe at home, and my time might be better spent getting service delivered to somebody on the side of the freeway, for example, in a more difficult situation on behalf of our members. So I think, really, in essence, we're leveraging technology to deliver value to our members while still retaining the ability to apply and allocate agent skill to those more challenging tasks.
And what are some of the lessons you learned from this automation journey? I know you're in the midst of it, and there's more automation in the future. But what are some of the initial lessons that you learned?
That's an interesting question. There's been a lot of them, right? So on this journey, like I mentioned, it's been a number of years we've been following this path, and I think an equal amount of lessons have been learned along the way. One of the most valuable of these lessons, I think, might be, we've got a solid grasp on our customers, our members' needs and expectations. The marketplace developments in recent years has had an impact on some of those elements. And it might be something as simple as recognizing that there's a segment of folks that might prefer to use a channel that allows them to leverage SMS text, for instance, rather than phone interactions. But then I think key in that space is whether you recognize or are quick to recognize that their expectations in that channel might differ from our assumptions. And then potentially, does that limit our ability to provide significant value, or is there an opportunity to change, the richness of the experience, for example? And that's just one, right? There's so many perspectives that come into play when we talk about engaging technology, whether it's, automating contact that I mentioned earlier, automating a process that might, ease our scheduling policies and allow more automation and less effort on the part of the agent, so they can focus more on those difficult situations. I think for me, I would just encourage folks to explore with an open mind and a readiness to recognize when consumer expectations might differ from our own ideas, because there's the Amazon effect, the Uber effect, right? Where marketplace expectations have really evolved, and we've got to keep pace with those changing expectations.
So let's talk about the agent for a second. Maybe start with your level. We hear from every one of our customers that hiring and retaining agents is the number one challenge right now. Is it something that you're dealing with as well? And if yes, what have changed now, maybe compared to 10 years ago when this was not as much of a problem?
In the case, our case specifically, we have recently, and I hesitate to say it because as soon as you announce that you've had some good results, the market has a way of checking your ego, right? But I think we've done a really good job of adapting to the challenges over the past 3-4 years that have taken place in the employment market specifically. So we did have some really heavy challenges over, especially the course of the pandemic, like everybody else did, right? I'm not sharing any news flash, but we did make a number of adjustments to how we staff, how we pay, all the different variations, looked at the marketplace as a whole and determined what would be the best approach for us, and iterated on that 3 or 4 different times over the course of 2020, 2021. And we made significant strides. So currently, we're pretty stable, and it feels nice, right? So there's folks that, we've got a solid population of folks that have been with us literally decades. And of course, then there's that younger population, less tenured population. But in recent, I would say the last 24 months, we've done really well in that space. And I think it comes down to a combination of providing them flexibility in their schedules that meets, a changed environment on behalf of the worker themselves. We're fully remote in my contact center space, so everybody's, they're working from home, allowing them that flexibility along with a solid rate and the intrinsic value, I think, of helping people and recognizing that they're helping people along the way. As long as we've got folks that want to help people and they're able to help people, tying those things together makes for a better experience for the employee. And I think that's led to some of the successes we've seen in that space recently.
Yeah, the remote work is kind of amazing phenomena. I've been in a large 4,000 people contact center in the UK a few months ago, and while they invite everybody to go back to the office post pandemic, literally no one is there. It was such a ghost town. And of course the company has a 15 years lease on this contact center, but it's absolutely a ghost town. They don't even heat the whole space
Right.
anymore, just trying to conserve energy. So what do agents feel about automation? I just actually posted today on LinkedIn an article about the impression of one of the call center employees of AT&T and her concerns about automation. What do your employees feel and think about automation so far?
So far, we've had pretty positive response to what we're doing. I keep everybody informed of all the activity taking place, both at an immediate tactical level, as well as giving them whatever view I can into a more strategic, longer term approach through a monthly blog I do internally for my folks. And I'll do some video blogs occasionally, and keeping them informed on what we're doing and how we're doing it. Like the engagement with Replicant is a good example. They saw the value of what we were doing. We were taking some of those tasks that to them, again, didn't seem to leverage their skills and allowed them to focus on those more critical ones. And I think they saw the value in that, and we had a really positive response to that. Likewise, on some of the other less difficult, challenging situations, right, where If a member, say, is safe at home and they want to engage in an automated approach, if they're safe at home, they got a flat tire in their driveway and they don't have to be at a doctor's appointment or be at the office right away, or they can get maybe an Uber or Lyft to the office. It's more mouse clicks than anything else, and folks would rather, I think, spend time talking to that person who is in a critical need situation, and then they feel the value of that. So far we've had a really good response. I don't think we've overstepped yet, although mistakes happen, and like I said before, it's just really critical to focus, pay attention, and be ready to pivot.
Mm-hmm. What maybe tell me some of the challenges you had internally, which advice you give to other contact center CX leaders that want to implement automation? Did you face challenges from the leadership? How did you kind of build a coalition around that? Kind of take us into the internal debate around automation.
As holistically taking a step back and making sure to really understand the journey, like I mentioned before, we all have a firm grasp on our business, right? But making sure to look at it through the lens of your customer and experience that journey through their eyes. Would your mother, your sister, your son or daughter, would that experience be great for them in their eyes? And then put that all together when you look at it from a leadership perspective, and getting into how do you bring it together and put an ROI to it. I think it's really important, and you need to get IT time for development and all of that work. It's important to take the time to evaluate the journey, understand the cost benefit with an objective view of what costs are being incurred in the process against those that can, might be mitigated. And then understanding that there could be downstream impact, and really taking a hard look at assessing that, looking for those elements and make sure they're considered as part of the equation, because there's no one size fits all exercise, right? So it comes down to building a solid partnership between the operations and the IT group, and engaging in appropriate analysis and strategic development together as a team, and then putting that package together to present to leadership.
And have you how things change after you implement Replicant? Was any perception change? Any haters becoming lovers or lover becoming haters?
We didn't have any haters. There were, of course, and if I weren't the one pitching it, maybe I would have been, skeptical too, right? Because you always want to look at things with an eye to caution. But I think the results that we've gotten as a result of the engagements thus far have been positive, to the extent that we're ready to try some new things together with Replicant as a team, and see if we can affect a change in a positive manner in some other spaces. So the results that we got, as an example, through our keeping members informed exercise, serve to really provide a positive view and open the eyes of folks to some new opportunities that might exist.
Mm-hmm. So with your experience, how would you imagine the contact center of the future? Let's say 5 years from now, 3 years from now, how would it look different than it is today?
I think that's a great question, Gadi. I think 3 to 5 years from now, we'll probably see a lot smoother process flows across business verticals, as leaders engage in various levels of automation, whether it be simple things like lookups on the front end to supply all of that 365-degree customer data that is now available. I think the combination of big data and automation coming together serves us to allow us to engage, again, taking some of the mundane stuff out, right? So if an agent doesn't have to ask for some of the little details like, phone numbers and addresses and all of that can be readily populated, and they can just get to work with that interpersonal interaction. That's where the value really comes in automation, is taking the menial tasks away and allowing the human to interact with the human. And it goes back to an old adage, just people serving people. And I think it'll provide for streamlining that process, allowing the customer to come in smoothly. The agents, where they need to engage, can engage where there's high value and return for their time and effort. And where there's, I don't want to call it low value, but again, more just data entry stuff, we can let the automation take care of some of that stuff.
One of the things that many people don't necessarily think about is how seasonal and not only seasonal, but also weather related, other event related your business is. You can have a day with X calls and the next day you can have 5X calls, and sometimes the entire difference is the day of the week or the weather pattern at the specific day. How do you think of the opportunity with the kind of infinite scalability of automation to help with that on one hand, but on the other hand, actually expand to maybe other services that you were not able to provide before because of the nature of your business?
Yeah, that's a great point. So weather impacts us, and our footprint spans through, the Midwest, where you have some pretty heavy winter variation, and then into the South, where we've got hurricane and tornadoes and so we get all elements, right? So year round for us, there's that variability that exists. And where I think this can really improve our ability to serve would be in taking some of the ebb and flow away and maybe smoothing out that volume. For example, in the case of severe weather, potentially we could allow our members to get a view of that through communicating to them what the situation is in their area, what we're up against, and maybe providing them some automated options for if they're at home safe. Maybe we can just make them an appointment for when we believe that the time will have elapsed and cleanup operations from, say, a snowstorm or something would be complete, and then they could be at rest knowing that everything's taken care of, and allow again the human to human interaction for those folks who are in the storm and having to get immediate service to those folks. So I think it could chop some of that volume off the top, smooth that out, allow folks to interact in an automated manner, still having that reassurance that they're cared for, and allowing again that human to human focus in the urgent cases.
Well, great. We're coming towards the end of the podcast. I have to introduce our last segment. We call it Speed Dial. And in this, I'm going to ask you several questions, and the only rule is you have to answer in one sentence. Customer service, which companies do you think excel in that? Which company do you really appreciate when it comes to customer service?
So I've had some great experiences with a couple of companies, and those two that come to mind, Delta Airlines and American Express, for me, I've had great experiences with. Obviously, I can't speak for everybody, but those are two organizations that I've had positive experiences with.
When you think of the customer service agent of the future, again, think this 5 years exercise, in which way should they be different? Which personality traits they need to have in order to be successful?
An easy one for me. So I'll always lean towards empathy and a desire to serve. The ability to put ourselves into the experience of another person provides us the most effective view of how we might add value to that person's day.
It's such a great answer. To me, like the closing your eyes, imagine the person you're helping, whether it's a customer or even a friend. It's such an easy exercise, and it goes a long way to just be a little bit more attuned to this person. What was the highlight, or what is the highlight of your career?
Well, that's a toughie, Gadi. There's been a lot of highlights. The ones that stand out for me are the situations where employees have shared with me a positive impact that I might have had with them. I've got some letters and cards that I received from employees along the way, and I actually keep those. And I still refer to them today, just if I need to pick me up.
I love it. This is I keep telling people that you get excited about a deal you close, about a customer you gain, about like a acquisition. But at the end of the day, when I look back at my career, the only thing I remember is people and how I was able to make a tiny impact on their life. And this really the only thing which is rewarding to me.
Yeah.
If you're not doing what you do today, what would be your alternative job?
I would, if I weren't doing what I'm doing here at the Auto Club Group, I would still be in service. I'd be in service delivery. The best parts of my career have been in service delivery. And there was a period, I think I mentioned earlier, that I got out and into back-end systems and such. And that was when I realized where I needed to be and got back into the service, how I ended up here. And so I would still be in the service delivery industry.
So on the spectrum, where are you? AI will destroy the world or will do great things to the world?
Wow. So I think the time we're in right now, and I know it's one sentence, but give me maybe two or three sentences, I think. So I think the time we're in right now is really awesome. The speed of development in AI and the broad array of opportunities, I think, are really cool. So I don't see it as a doomsday or anything like that. Obviously, there's areas that could be ripe for abuse, and we've seen those in cybercrime, right? And it's really, so you just got to be diligent in your efforts. But it's a powerful tool that I think we can leverage to create great benefits and just really, warrants the caution to just maintain oversight and ensure ethical engagement. That's all.
And my last question is, who would you love to see on the podcast? Somebody, a customer service leader that you respect and would like to see here?
Well, that's a good one. There's lots. I mean, I think when you look at the AI element that we just talked about, and then the broad scope of applicability, along with the broad base of industry verticals that Elon Musk covers, I would love to see you talk with him and get his both his perspective on the AI and automation element, as well as that service delivery to the human piece. I think that would be awesome. That might be a stretch.
Hard to get, but really interesting one. That was a wonderful conversation, Joe. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you for everybody that dialed in. Until next time.
All right. Thanks, Gadi. Talk to you soon.